All right, guys, it's 7 o'clock on a Wednesday. Welcome. I now call the February 23rd, 2022 special meeting of the City Council to order. Mrs. Hoffman, if you can please take roll.
Ms. Elmore?
Present.
Mr. Cahill? Ms. Kyle?
Here.
Mr. Skidmore? Mr. Hermes?
Here.
Mr. Doan?
Present.
Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Ms. Skidmore? Ms. Nicely?
Present.
Mr. Nipper? Ms. Reckers?
Here.
Ms. Jasper Lucas?
Here.
All right, thank you. So the only item on the agenda for tonight is the Stevenson Road Sidewalk project. I'm going to start that discussion, and I'm going to come down to the podium again. All right. Thank you again for coming. I know that it's a Wednesday night. It's not our normal meeting day or time or meeting day, but I appreciate it. So I thought the train depot conversation went so well to where we just laid it all out on the table, where we got all information out there, timelines, all the bids, all the issues, and we had an open discussion. I thought it worked very well. So we're going to try this again. So what we're here tonight for is Stevenson Road Sidewalk project that has been put into this current fiscal year's budget. And we'll kind of walk through the timeline and some of the history of this project because a lot of the work predates some of the newer council members. So I'm going to kind of backtrack and walk through some timelines here. Then we're going to also talk about the current status of this project. And then we'll talk about the staff and this administration's recommendation, and then we'll take some questions and comments. So I'll have quite a bit of information for you. It'll be up on the screen as well. Matt Kramer will jump in when necessary. Peter's here to jump in when necessary. So we should be able to answer all questions and comments and concerns and try to walk out of here with a plan. All right? So we'll go ahead and start with the timeline, just moving back to 2017. Now, I'm sure work has happened on this for a long time. So as you know, Stevenson Road is an issue. It's been an issue for probably over 20 or 30 years. There is an existing plan that is 30 years old that is out of date at this point. So ultimately, a new design is going to have to be created for Stevenson Road before any construction can be done. The typical time frame for a road project is you have to have design, and then you have property acquisition, right-of-way acquisition, and then you have construction. So those three steps have to be followed, and sometimes they can get lengthy. Some have funds available for them, some have authorized funds, and some just have allocated funds and not authorized. And we can kind of talk about how that works, because this has been a huge learning experience over the past 4 or 5 years for myself, Matt Kramer. So we're gonna just try to explain everything. So back in February of 2017, Stevenson Road Committee was formed. March of 2018, CAO Kramer developed the 7 zones of critical needs from Dixie Highway to Turkey Foot and documented the improvements needed and consulted with the Stevenson Road Committee for input. Matt, do you by any chance have those to where you could pull those up?
I have them on my screen, but not up there.
Oh, okay. So we can send those out to you guys, so you're just familiar with some of the pre-work that has been done. Once we had that information from Matt, we were able to go to PDS, and through February and April of 2018, we worked with PDS to create a storyboard. And what that is it goes through all of the issues with Stevenson Road, one by one. All of those 8 or those 7 zones that were identified by Matt had pictures and videos and testimonies from business owners and residents, and truly gives a very good depiction of the issue, and tries to, I don't know, be the way to get some funding from either state level or some kind of community partner that you can show this story map to. In March of 2019, staff and myself, we met with KYTC District 6 staff regarding the Stevenson Road reconstruction. August of that same year, Mr. Kramer was able to convince OKI at the board meeting to add Stevenson Road as number 13 out of the 15 top projects. It had not been high on their list at all. It really hadn't even been on their radar. And Mr. Kramer was able to use all the data that had been gathered from the story map and really tell a compelling story and get us moved up on that OKI project list, which was huge, because you really don't even get a spot at the table on the state level until OKI is really paying attention to your project. So in October of 2019, myself, Matt Kramer, Mr. Glenn, we went down to Frankfurt and talked to the Secretary Gray, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, about Stevenson Road and Houston, and the majority of that conversation went to Houston Road, where it had not been, we had been told that it was, on lock, however, it really wasn't. So we really didn't get to touch on Stevenson Road all that much during that meeting, and it was mostly a meeting about Houston Road and making sure that the economic development didn't stop because of the Houston Road issues. That light is a constant problem for all the tractor trailers, and it's a detriment to all of the businesses that are up there now. April of 2020, we again met with SD1 regarding the flooding in Stevenson Road. October of 2020, we met with KYTC District 6 to discuss all the state roads in Erlanger. And then just this past year, Mr. Kramer met with our state representatives regarding the lack of road maintenance and funding and Stevenson Road funding. A lot of our issues are, I don't know if it's District 6 is understaffed, but most of the time our guys have to, our public works have to go out and fill the potholes and kind of be that gap in the service that we are receiving from the state. It's disappointing, it's unfortunate. However, in order to reduce some of the issues and the complaints that we receive, we go and we take responsibility and get it done. Luckily, District 6 has said, you can just send us those bills and we will reimburse you for those expenses. No? Fill me in.
We had talked about that. They refused to sign the contract. However, we are going to start sending the bills. We've here in this next month regarding salt, regarding plow, regarding potholes and everything else.
Okay. So Bob Yeager said that we could go down and take his hot cold mix, right?
Yeah, I mean they're
But
willing to give us salt.
subpar.
They're willing to give us less of a product that we don't use because we use higher quality stuff. So those are the two things that they have offered. They have not offered to refund us, but we are going to be pushing that issue this year.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt. So we have been constantly talking with District 6 about the lack of funding, the lack of attention to our state-maintained roads. I mean, this is not just Stevenson, to be honest. It's Commonwealth also. I mean, Commonwealth, the potholes are significant. So we're bridging that gap. So let's see here. April of 2021, we had talked with Public Works staff to develop a minimalist approach to repairing the Stevenson Road sidewalks. We all know it's an issue, and we don't have any concrete evidence that we're actually going to move forward with Stevenson Road construction or a time frame at this point. So looking at a triage, just a bare minimum to get it to a safe level for transportation. I mean, it's a walking district, so kids are going to school, they're walking on these sidewalks. I mean, if you go down Stevenson Road right now, there are sidewalks that are completely filled with water. The kids are either walking into other people's yards or they're walking out into the street. It's not a good situation. And to be honest, the sidewalks are the city's responsibility no matter what. No matter if the state does the reconstruction or not, we should have been maintaining these all along, to be honest. So, April 2021, coming up with just a triage. What's the minimum we can do? Because we don't want to pour a whole bunch of money into this project. However, we need a Band-Aid. Okay, so we worked with VIOX, and we were able to get a couple of different plans, like, okay, if we blew out the whole thing, what is it going to look like? If we took it down a couple of stages, and we wound up just going to like the bare minimum that needed to be done. And that was what was presented to you guys in the budget presentation in April of this past year. So the original estimate given by VIOX was $332,000, and that was then put out to bid. The bids that we received in October of last year, it came in under bid at $249,000 for a total of 1,850 square yards of sidewalk, 280 square yards of aprons, 125 square yards of ADA ramps, 25 yards of new sidewalk between Mary and Stevenson. And Matt, can you fill us in on the Mary and Stevenson?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues that I identified in the 7 problem areas for Stevenson is the Mary Stevenson intersection. If you guys remember that, it's offset, the roads don't line up nicely, and the sidewalk is a diagonal from corner to corner diagonally. So part of this bid process was 25 yards of new sidewalk, so that would continue on down and then be able to cross like a normal sidewalk as opposed to a diagonal, which is a lot safer than the way it is right now.
Thanks, Matt. All right. So the other bids that came in were well over. So the 249 was a pretty good deal, and was going to take care of, the minimal approach, the triage approach. So as we're walking through this process, we put out the bids, we're awarding the bid. Mr. Kramer received a phone call from Representative Koenig, who had spoken early in December of last year with SD1, Kenton County, KYTC, District 6, of a potential way to get Stevenson Road moving a little quicker. And the recommendation was, if people put in a local match, how can we move this project along? So Koenig was asking for our commitment. He wanted us to hold off on construction because he didn't know how quickly this could get done. So, Mr. Kramer, if you want to just briefly explain that process a little bit.
Sure. Let me back up 1 second, though, just because I had a question from a council member regarding the $249,000 bid. So that bid was not for any large sections of Stevenson. We weren't doing from Mary down to Rainbow. It was Public Works and VX walked it. We were going to take the sections out that are really bad, and those are the ones that we're going to replace, just so everybody kind of understands that there aren't going to be any really large sections replaced. It's going to be the areas that are really critical to do. So in December, I received a phone call from Representative Koenig that he had met with SD1, Kenton County, and District 6, wanting to get a partnership and some financial commitments from everybody with the ARPA funds and all the other funds. That's what they were hoping for, and that's he called me, and then after I talked to him, I reached out to SD1, I reached out to Kenton County and District 6 just to kind of get an idea of how much, because they're asking for financial incentives, but nobody was throwing numbers to me. Nobody could really tell me what. So I really wanted to get a handle on what kind of money are we are we talking, and they were asking the city of Erlanger how much we were willing to put in. So that was a discussion that we had in December. What I had told District 6 and Representative Koenig is that, by December 20th is what I told them, and we need to all meet again and actually have some numbers to put out there, just so when they were going to present this to the state and the Secretary of Transportation, they need to know a number. We can't just say, yeah, we're going to financially put in. We need to know how much, and that never happened in 2021. That was a short time frame anyway, but the reason I gave them the December 20th was because we had that bid out there that we needed to, either commit to or move forward without.
Okay, thank you. So then the next time that we heard of this project was February 2022, like last week. So we are getting ready to sign the contract. So the bid has gone out. The bid has been awarded. We've put this company now on hold, like, hey, can you just wait a couple more weeks? Can you hold off? Finally, we're like, okay, let's just move on. Let's move forward with our intended plan. And we are ready to sign the contract, and we get a phone call pausing us again. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the legislation's in session, and so I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday last week that Representative Koenig called me again, asking about the commitment letter, had talking to SD1 in Kenton County. So I had talked to everybody about that. We were willing to send a commitment letter, but we really needed to either make the decision to sign the contract, because the contractor was pretty lenient with us and not allowing us to sign it yet. We kept putting them off just to make sure to see if this materialized, because we have been waiting a long time to have it replaced, but we've also been waiting a long time to start the sidewalk project. So that's when we were contacted last week. I did talk to SD1, who was willing to put a letter in, Kenton County also, and then I verified the whole plan with District 6. And what I got from District 6 is although Stevenson Road is in the plan currently, in the budget for the state, it's state funds, and we need to have that state money turn into federal money. If it turns into federal money, then we have a really good chance of continuing this process for Stevenson Road. Currently, District 6 is working on the designs. The 1980s plans, which are handwritten drawings, need to be redone into the CAD system. So it's pretty much a complete rework. Everybody's kind of talking about, we just have to update the 40-year-old plans. In reality, it's a complete rework. So they're doing that in-house. They've got that fully funded. I think it's $800-something to complete those drawings. I was told that the drawings should be done by the calendar year. Of course, I had concerns because it was moving over fiscal years, and they said it didn't matter because the funding was there, and how they work, that project will be complete because the funding rolls over. So that's the time frame on that, is that the drawings will be complete by the end of this calendar year to move on to utilities and right-of-way acquisition moving forward. But nothing else has been funded other than the plans right now.
Correct.
Well,
So,
yeah, it's in the budget, but it doesn't have real dollars yet.
yeah, so there's a difference between allocated funds and authorized funds. You can be in the road plan and have allocated funds, but because typically they over-program the road fund. So unless you have actual authorized funds, your project is kind of in a limbo state, okay? And that's kind of where Stevenson Road has been for a good amount of time. So the authorized funds are $840,000 for the design that will be done by the end of this calendar year. And then the allocated funds is in 2024 right-of-way property acquisition, and then 2026 construction. But again, these are not authorized funds. So there's no telling if it truly will be only 4 years. And it's dependent on that that 4-year time frame is dependent on the federal funds, it being switched from state to federal funding. So there are so many pieces of this that are not concrete. Okay, so our suggestion and our recommendation is that we move forward with the minimalized approach. The sidewalks that are in the worst case scenario, it's been identified by Jim Viox. Ed's walked it, Peter's walked it. We drive it every day. We know it's bad. We know it's beyond what it should be. Our kids are expected to walk to school on these sidewalks, and the worst case scenario is that we only enjoy the Band-Aid for 4 years. So, and there's not even any concrete evidence that our sidewalks would be ripped up. We don't even have a plan. So that is our recommendation. Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, I guess a couple pieces. One, I guess isn't worst case scenario, we spend $250,000 and then we're now committing an additional $350 if the whole federal funds piece goes through?
That $350 wouldn't be until actual construction.
Right, but then we're essentially saying we're committing, we had $332,000 in the budget. We're willing to commit $350,000 to the total project because we were already planning on spending money anyway. But this would be an additional $350 to tear down the sidewalks and then get this full road rebuilt, correct?
To do a full reconstruction
Right.
from Turkey Foot all the way up to Dixie. Yep.
So, okay, so that was the one piece. The second piece that I guess I'm not necessarily understanding this minimalist approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of doing some math, and maybe there's a piece I'm missing. But if I assume it's let's say a 3-foot sidewalk, right, 3 foot wide, and maybe it's larger. There is 1,873 yards between Mary and Jacqueline. I'm missing that 1850 and how that's minimalist. That seems almost the entire length of Stevenson.
It's approximately 25% of Stevenson. So if you look at the entire square yards from Dixie to Turkey Foot, what we are wanting to do, it's approximately 23 to 25%.
And is that a larger than a 3-foot sidewalk? Because it's 5,600 feet from Mary to Jacqueline. So even if I, shrink that, that seems to be a significant portion of. I'm struggling with how that's only 25%.
That was just a rough estimate I did up here right before the meeting. So Peter, do you have? Okay.
Yeah, I think first the sidewalks are 4 feet wide, aren't they? 4 or 5. Okay.
Yeah. So at a 4-foot wide sidewalk, we are 2,500 yards from Mary to Jacqueline. So this is 75% of that space, right? I mean, but we only have sidewalk on essentially one side of the street.
It's on both sides.
I'm just missing the
Where
math
the-
here. I'm trying to figure out how 1850 is minimalist when.
Mr. Meyer, where are you measuring again? You're
I
saying from
measured the
Mary
linear
to-
distance from Mary to Jacqueline, and that was 5,600 feet.
That's over a mile? Doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Mary to Jacqueline. Mary to Jacqueline, yeah. Mary to Jacqueline. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Peter, do you mind coming up here?
I think when we're talking about the minimalist approach wasn't necessarily a square yardage or a linear foot type of approach. It was just going out and identifying the worst spots that we had to take care of, not going beyond just what was a basic need. And we didn't really, so it wasn't really a thing saying, okay, how can we stay within a 25% or 30% or whatever of the total linear footage. It was just an approach of saying, Ed, go out with VOX and look at the worst spots. Let's just address the worst spots. So we didn't do anything more than that. Whereas, when we replace the sidewalks, if we move forward, there'll still be spots out there that are not, above standard type of things. It'll still be, it's still going to be Stevenson Road sidewalks, but we're just trying to address the worst spots possible. That's what our intention was with the minimalist approach.
And that makes sense. I was trying to understand how we got from minimalist to 1850 bid, when it seems like that's actually 75% of a 4-foot sidewalk from.
So I don't know off the top of my head what the actual percentage of total sidewalk we're replacing is. It's just what we thought was with Jim Viox, of course, what we thought was the bare minimum we could actually do.
Okay.
Yeah, Gary, I think your numbers are accurate. I think I miscalculated that earlier. So it is probably between 50 and 75%. Now, the difference when we're talking minimalist is we're not improving curbs and things like that. I mean, we have a lot of sidewalks that are below roadway and things. So, I think the more we're talking about minimalist is just replacing what's there. We're not really improving it to raise it above the sidewalk to make it safer, or raise it above the roadway to make it safer to put a curb in, things like that. Because right now, everybody knows you can drive on the sidewalks, a lot of them, right? So I think when we're talking minimalist, I know what you're thinking is like a smaller percentage, but we're just not really doing much improvements other than making it a better sidewalk than it is now.
No, I mean, you're right, and I walked it yesterday. I've got video from the entire stretch from Rainbow, up through Mary, and there are some parts that are just absolutely horrible, right? I couldn't even walk on the sidewalk. I get that, but then there are I would say 50% of it in that stretch is probably passable and good enough for now. So I guess what I'm looking at is how can we throw away, because I mean I think we're all believers that this eventually get done, right? How do we throw away the least amount of money? Because I do support getting some sidewalk repairs. The last question that I had, at least for right now, was just around the federal money. What's the timing of when we might know if federal dollars are actually committed to this? Because my understanding is once federal is committed, it's not an if, it's now just a when.
So the time frame is they passed the budget in March. I guess they're expecting a line item veto in April. And then by April 13th or 14th, there would be an override to the veto. And that would be whether or not the federal funds are in there. Mr. Eckers.
So what is the harm in waiting 60 days before it would result in a rebid. It may, upset the apple cart with our vendors who have put in bids, but if we can save $250,000 of taxpayer dollars and just press pause for 60 days, I don't see where the harm in that is, particularly if by that point we would have a commit of federal dollars.
So here's the issue with that. because even with the federal dollars, it's still 4 years out. And then you're also, it's in this current fiscal year, so they have until June 30th of this, till the budget cycle ends. So in reality, we will then, if we're not doing it now and we wait, then I'm going to be asking you for it again, and we are going to kick this can down the road once again. When in reality, if we would have started already, like we anticipated, they're going to be done by June. Like this Band-Aid is going to be done by June, and we're at least going to enjoy it for at least 4 years.
Well, we don't know if it's going to take 4 years to do. I don't think that that's a fair assessment.
That is exactly what Representative Koenig
No,
told
I know,
Matthew
I saw the
yesterday.
email, but I'm also saying they could tear out utilities before then. They may not.
Oh, sure.
And the sidewalk it's not in yardage. It's on the road. So it's not, are they going to tear out the sidewalks? All of the work will be torn out in less than 4 years if we put this money into it. I just think that
I think you have a tremendous amount of faith.
I have no
that a
faith in the government.
project- Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, 4 years, because when we first started this conversation back in December, it was construction in 2 years. And then within a month and a half, it was construction in 4 years.
Yeah, and we
So
didn't
even
expect
in
a
just month and
pandemic.
a
We didn't
half,
expect a pandemic. It
had
was
moved.
originally in the 18-19 budget, but they were 260% overcommitted on project. I mean, and that was in
it's
a different
joke, to be honest.
administration. We had a
Yeah.
different administration. I'm not trying to argue over this. We absolutely need sidewalks on this road. It's our residents. We have walking traffic. I mean, my husband walked to traffic on the same sidewalks to high
Yeah.
school. So I get it. Like, we absolutely need this. It's for our city. But it's 60 days. It's less than 60 days. 60 more days at the cost of $250K. I think it's fair to pause.
But it's
You're still
60
putting it
days
off for
minus
another
4
year
years.
or so.
Yeah.
Well,
But not
Can-
necessarily,
can-
though. I mean, we could, I'm sorry.
Okay.
know,
Let's
this
make
is-
sure that we're called on. Sorry.
What?
Let's make sure we're called on. Mr. Hermes, you have something to say?
This is not a brand-new issue. I mean, we've been talking about this for as long as I've been around, and I know it's been for longer than that. We've been promised this money over and over again. We were promised the design was going to be completed in 2020. It's 2022 now. Hey, I don't think it's fair to blame that on the pandemic. We'll just go from one thing to blame to the next. The reality is the sidewalks are dangerous. The sidewalks are our responsibility. If someone gets hurt on those sidewalks, Mr. Gatlin, who would they sue?
Everybody.
Well, yeah.
I mean, in all seriousness, I don't mean to joke, but I mean, that's a complicated question. Obviously, anytime you identify sidewalks as a potential hazard, which the city has here, the city is ultimately responsible for that. That's in the city's right-of-way. Yeah, I mean, the city obviously gets sued. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, a $250,000 lawsuit wouldn't be that large, I don't think, if somebody were hurt along the sidewalk there. I mean, there are areas that are so bad where the state has paved and repaved the road to the point where the pavement is higher than the sidewalk, and the sidewalk doesn't have a drain. So all the water pools there. I mean, it's just absolutely horrible. And this is the Erlanger-Ellesmere school system touts itself as being a walking school system. The kids walk to school. And this is a major thoroughfare that serves several schools. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. The sit-and-wait approach, I think we've already tried that. We've tried that for multiple years. And I find it strange, and I also find it a little bit nauseating that this stuff comes up when we say we're going to do something about it. We're tired of waiting. It's time for us to take action. That we finally get word from our representative that, oh, don't do anything now because it's about to happen. And that's not the first time that's happened either. That's what I'm just saying. To me, I'm so tired of hearing this over and over, and tired of us not taking action. Thank you.
Mrs. Kyle?
This is words from the old sage. A lot of you were not around when Stevenson was a little dirt road, and my husband was little, and he used to ride his bike down from Garvey through a neighbor's yard down to Stevenson. They used to shoot squirrels, and it was allowed. It wasn't against the law. But when they built those sidewalks in that road, here's the problem. You had a big lake on top of the hill, and you've got all this water draining down from two sides. And when they put in the drainage, the storm sewer, it wasn't put in right. And it's been that way ever since I've lived here. Now, I was a little bit older. I wasn't a youngster like Joe, but he was reminding me that one whole side of Stevenson where the sidewalks are used to be a big old creek. And see, so you've got all that water there, and that's the problem. Now, if we put in these sidewalks, it'll help somewhat. But then when you have the flood, I don't know if it's going to go up above the sidewalk or not. But I feel sorry for these kids that walk to school. And it scares me because when I used to drive to St. Henry's on my way to school, I'd see these kids walking. And if it was wet, they would either go in the street or in a neighbor's yard. And you've got all these cars and all this traffic now that you didn't have years ago. And without a curb, those kids are going to get hit. And you all don't remember this probably either, but when I was on council years ago, when we were building this building here, we used to have our meetings out on Narrows Road. Well, if you remember the old Turkey Foot, you had those two big dips. There were so many accidents down in that dip, and people were killed, and still the state wouldn't do anything. So I know Adam is doing a good job. I commend him on trying to get this funding. I know he's working hard, but when you work with the state, I don't have much faith either. And so I agree with the administration that something has to be done. And if we put this off, my fear is these people are not going to honor this. I mean, this contract for right now is $249. If you put that off and we have to renegotiate, I can tell you right now, folks, the price is going to go way up. Because everything right now is going way up. Everything, your groceries, your Duke Energy bill, gasoline, everything. So you know this is going to go up. I mean, that's an expensive venture. But for $249, I think we should go for it because these poor kids, you know, and I have friends who live there, they like to walk. They can't walk in their neighborhood. They want to walk, but they can't. You get to that one point, and it's just a river. You know, you can't walk through there. So at least if we do the fix, and I know I'll get criticized for this because there's a lot of people out there today that were talking about, oh, the city's going to spend millions of dollars on these sidewalks, and then the state's going to come in and tear them all up. I can't help it, folks. We got to fix what we got to fix now for these kids. And that's what I would say. I would say we should go for it. Because I just don't trust the state. We have to wait forever on these people.
Ms. Jasper Lucas?
Thank you. I'm very torn on this, I'll be honest. My grandparents lived on Stevenson when I was born. They lived right across from the greenhouse, probably one of the lowest places on Stevenson. Their house set up on a little bit of a hill. I mean, it's still there, but so they didn't ever have a lot of water issues. But I mean, we literally used to drive down Stevenson and see how high the water could splash on the sides of the cars. And that was 43 years ago, 40-something years ago. So it's been an issue. This is not a new problem. My husband walked from Jacqueline to Lloyd High School down Stevenson Road. So I get it. I know there's kids that walk. I drove down Stevenson twice this past weekend, specifically to see where the problem places were. And it concerns me that there are no curbs and that there are so many spots that are below water. And this weekend was a great time to see it because it had rained a lot. But on the other hand, I'm really struggling with what does it hurt to wait 60 days? I don't know. I struggle with, can we just wait 60 days, see what's going to happen? I don't like personally spending money. I try to make my pennies squeak, and I would hate for us to spend it and just see it all torn up, because it's going to take a massive amount of work, and everything's going to get torn up. And I really struggle with that. I do have a question about, this 4-year time frame, and we don't know that it'd be exactly 4 years, but, we budgeted $332,000. If we spread that out, and I'm just saying like over 4 years, how much would we spend in a year to patch sidewalks or repair small things? Because if you take that 300, I'm just looking at, do we spend it all now or do we spend it over 4 years? That's my thinking here. How much would we spend in a year to fix things on Stevenson if we didn't actually replace things, just repairing? Because if you divide 332 by 4, it's 83,000. Now, I don't know that we'd spend 83,000 a year, but
I also want to just kind of jump back to what Ms. Kyle said before Peter jumps in here. The other bids on this project were $374,725 and $379,397. So both other bids that we received were over the authorized funds. So when we talk about why not to wait, she is right. Prices are going up every single moment, and we're kind of stringing this company along, and it's just for a Band-Aid. So yes, I understand 60 days. However, it's construction season. It's in this current fiscal year's budget, and it just delays everything.
Okay, so to answer the question, how much would we spend in-house or on contracted work over the next 4 years repairing the sidewalk? It would be virtually nothing. It's the same as what we spent over the last 4 years. So basically what we've been doing is, as you see, traveling it and walking it, we've done asphalt patchwork to concrete sidewalks, just trying to keep them from being like a rubbleized gravel type of sidewalk. So we've done a little bit of that. And in the money that we spend sidewalk-wise has typically been according to our zones, as everybody's kind of aware of. We're working our way through the city zone-wise. So basically, there's been no plan other than this to address anything on any kind of a scale larger than just going in and maybe being responsive to a complaint. If a complaint comes in, we've worked with Matt on, responding to specific complaints within certain timeframes, and just doing basic asphalt patchwork. So I'm not proud to say that that's what we do, but that's what we've been doing.
Ms. Elmore?
I think our residents deserve this now. They deserve for us to put a Band-Aid and give them something, show them that we are doing something. We approved $332,000 back in June. We came in under budget. That's awesome. That's great. We came in under budget and we're covering this much. This is the bare minimum. This is the worst of the worst that needs to be done. I think it'd be negligent for our families and our students walking to and from every single day to just ignore it and put it off. We're talking at least 2 years minimum. 4 is what's on the schedule. Their priorities may shift. Things might change. We don't know when this is going to happen. We already approved it. I don't understand why this is coming back up as why we are going to do this or not. Yes, our residents deserve for us to do this now. Prices are going up. It's going to be higher. We've already jerked these people around the company. I think this is ridiculous that we're having this conversation. Our kids need this. Our families need this. yes, it's a Band-Aid. We already knew it was a Band-Aid. We already knew it was already going to be ripped up when it came through to get fixed. We just don't know when that's going to be now, just like we didn't know when that was going to be in June. So that's my opinion.
Ms. Nicely.
I'm really thrilled that Representative Koenig is helping us move along with the project. But with it being 2, 4, or 4 years or even further down the road, I think we deserve it, our citizens, of having the sidewalks fixed. Nobody wants a child to get hurt. If we can complete this by June, that would be great. The kids are out of school. We're promoting Rainbow Park. It'll be ready for next school year, walking to school. I do not want to see any children or even adults be hurt, and I think it's well deserving of the tax dollars to be spent to improve the sidewalks. So I'm in favor of let's do the minimal approach to get things going now, because we don't know if this street project is 2, 4, 6, 8 years down the road. So I support this.
You pick.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know that Rebecca had her hand up. I'm sorry. I
All
didn't
three
realize
of
that
you
everybody
shot
else.
your hand up
Sorry.
real quick.
What numbers, what data do we have on the number of kids walking to school, and what numbers do we have on people being injured? Because I'm hearing a lot of people speculate about a lot of injuries, yet I don't know what the data is. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I would like to see the data on injuries that are caused on Stevenson sidewalks.
I don't know if I necessarily heard anybody say there have been injuries. They're worried that there could potentially be injuries and potential litigation, and it's to limit our risk. But correct me if I'm wrong for those of you that have said that.
And I'm not aware of any case from Stevenson Road, but I will say that our office is representing a city that we represent on a sidewalk issue right now that is in court. So, it can happen. Again, I don't know what the date is in Erlanger.
I'm not arguing that it can't.
Yeah, but
I know
I'm
it can.
just saying, there are cases that are out there. They might be rare, and I don't frankly think we've had a sidewalk case in Erlanger in a while, but they are out there. I mean, there legitimately are sidewalk lawsuits that are out there where people sue cities. I mean, they're out there.
Do we have any numbers on the number of kids that walk? Even, I asked people for guesstimates, and basically was told it literally would take somebody sitting there and counting them.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if we had ever collected that data in the past, even to go on that, because I don't have any idea.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that data. The only data that I have to back that up is that I have seen children walking. So I go and pick my kids up every day from St. Henry, and I drive home to Lakemont. So I'm traveling that path every single day, and there are little kids with backpacks walking along Stevenson Road. So most of the time, I see them with their parents. So, Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, just I guess a couple more things. One, I don't think anybody's here arguing that there doesn't need to be repairs to Stevenson Road. I think there is probably consensus around, yes, we need repairs to Stevenson Road, to sidewalks. Two, I realize that this is just a courtesy here because we did budget the money. It is, was approved, and it is there, right? So we don't really get a say on whether we spend this $250 or not. What I will say, though, is I think it is irresponsible when it's coming to us. We now have new information, right? We might have federal dollars applied to this in 60 days, which might change the amount that we want to do. So we could go to rebid on April the 17th and say, hey, you know what, we're going to really scale this back and then end up spending $100,000 instead. Because I don't have the full plan of what's being done here. So there is new information, so I think we do need to talk about that. Next we talk about, design, property. Let's say we get the money. There is design, right? There is property acquisition. But then then we talk about construction. But there's also destruction as well that's going to happen. And my guess is there's probably going to be a significant period of time where there is no sidewalks at all on that stretch. So to say that we're gonna get 4, 5, 6 years out of these sidewalks is probably inaccurate. And then the last thing is, I know we've supposedly committed $350,000 to this project, but as I'm aware, I don't think council has actually committed a dollar to the Stevenson Road rebuild project. We've only committed the money to do the sidewalks.
Matt, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't committed, money in a budget for that. That would be something that obviously council will have to formalize in the future. But just with the amount of money that council had put in the budget this year and talking to the state of how much money was required, we decided on 350 was a reasonable amount if that was going to shove this project up to a 4-year plan as opposed to a 5 to 10 year dream right now.
But if we spend 250 of that 350, then are we only committing an additional 100?
No, I
Okay.
mean, that's
So it is an
350 is
additional
what
350.
our letter stated that, the mayor and I would come to council and ask for.
Which is very similar to what we do with any of the tax incentives that we give businesses. It's a very similar letter. When we still come to you all after and present the plan and get your approval on it. It's very similar.
And, I mean, just along those lines, ever since, I've been in this position, 17, when we've been discussing Stevenson, and I have told them that Erlanger would put money in, my whole rationale behind us spending taxpayer dollars was because of sidewalks. And that's what I've told them down in Frankfurt, what I've told everybody we've ever discussed is the reason Erlanger would consider putting money towards a state road is because we care about the sidewalks on that road. So that was always been my justification. It's never to deal with the flooding issues or anything like that. It's strictly been pedestrian travel.
Mr. Hermes?
I had talked about this a little bit with Councilman Nipper over text message, and he had asked that I share his thoughts on it. Referring to the sidewalks on Stevenson, he said, "I would like them fixed because we are always waiting on empty promises and procrastination from our state representative, Koenig, who always promises state matching funds but has never come through for the people of Erlanger." He asked me to share that. I said I would. I do have something else, though. About waiting for 60 days. I think the problem I see there is having to rebid it. Ed and Peter may either back me up on this or may say I'm all wet, and that's okay either way. But in my experience of almost 30 years of being a contractor and bidding things regularly, there's a strange phenomenon that happens when things get rebid. And I think Mrs. Kyle touched on this as well. I don't remember all the numbers right off, but if we have one guy who's around $250,000, we've got two guys that are around $350,000 or more, and then there's someone that's like $700,000. Did I hear that right?
It's 374 and 379.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought for some reason I thought there was a real high one there. But a lot of times the guy who's the highest bid won't even come back and rebid it. He's already spent the time, looked at the drawings, put together his best price, and to find out that two other guys beat you. And when you come back and say, "Hey, do you want to take another bite of that apple, or do you want to take another swing at that?" They'll be like, "No, there's other stuff. I'm not competitive. Somebody else is out there that's bidding lower, or somebody else made a bigger mistake." So sometimes we lose that price completely. The guy who's low then also sometimes realizes maybe I made a mistake. How am I $100,000? Because this is all public now. How am I $100,000 less than everybody else? And when he comes back and rebids it, I mean, I don't know what your experience is with this, guys, but I would say that that low number is probably going to be up higher to those other 379, 374 numbers. It's going to, so there is, you know, to see what it hurts to wait 60 days, it might be $100,000+ that it hurts and be over our budget.
My perspective on that, not trying to sway anybody one way or another for sure. But, right, so the low bid was under 250. The next lowest bid was over $100,000 more than that. So, of course, the low bidder is now going to realize that he left $100,000 on the table, so he won't be so apt to be so low the next time. That's typically what we see. But I think the real thing here is that we bid this going into winter, and this was going to be a wintertime project. So I know the low bidder was interested in keeping his people busy throughout the winter, so that way come summer, he's ready to go back out on street projects. So if we wait, we'll definitely be into another budget year per se, because we're not going to be able to finish it up this year, but we'll definitely be into a different bidding environment because it'll be summertime. And what would be the expectations for the completion date? Will we be able to push it back to let them do it in the winter to try to get a better price or not? So that's something to think about.
Jennifer?
I just want to point out how unprofessional it is that a lot of people are sitting around here vilifying Representative Koenig when he is not solely responsible for the state's budget. And I think it's just extremely unprofessional that anybody's even mentioning that this is his fault.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sometimes facts are hard to hear. And from what I have gone through in this timeline, this is unprofessional. We want to chastise those that you believe are unprofessional. However,
if the road was fixed, we'd all be sitting here praising him. If some other project was done, we'd all be sitting here praising him. But because of this one thing, the man is not responsible for the entire state's budget for roads.
We understand.
And it just needs to not even be a part of this conversation.
We're only having this
Do you
conversation
know of
because...
of a project that he's completed? I mean, do you know of one?
Hold on. We are only having this conversation right now because of a conversation that happened with Mr. Kramer and Adam Koenig. That is the only reason why we are sitting right here right now, because we would have already signed the contract and the construction probably already would have started. So, we're having to pump the brakes and totally reevaluate this project. So, I'm coming to you, giving you a timeline, giving you facts, giving you all the information, instead of just moving forward with the contract. Because as Gary Meyer said, it's in the budget. It's already been bid, it's already been awarded.
And all the new information could have been shared without blaming.
I have not blamed, I have explained.
I'm not saying that you specifically have. I'm saying that he has been attacked here, and that didn't even need to be a part of the conversation.
Okay. Ms. Reckers.
All I was going to say is, it sounds like the administration had already made up their mind, and we approved the budget last year. I guess this meeting could have been an email at this point.
I guess it could have. However, I wanted to make sure that all information was out there. And if we had true opposition or new information arose from this conversation, you all want transparency. This is about as transparent as you possibly can get. So, we've answered all questions, we've answered all concerns and comments. We've listened to your suggestions. We've offered feedback to those suggestions. And now I'm going to leave it up into your hands. And it's up to you all. We came here because I wasn't going to sign that contract without having this conversation, without getting the go-ahead from you all. All positions have been presented. Now it's up to you. Ms. Kyle.
I want to thank you for that, and I agree. You have come to us and let us be part of the process. And I know it was a done deal, but still new information came up and you shared that with us, and I appreciate that. I think that's a good quality for a mayor. But I also agree with Ms. Jasper that I don't feel like we should attack Adam Koenig, and this is not his problem. I mean, we are being attacked for Duke Energy bills right now. It's all council's fault. Don't you know that? That we're responsible for that? There was something else that came up recently, too. So we all get blamed for things. But in this case, I think Mayor did the right thing coming to us. I appreciate that transparency. It gives us a chance to rethink everything. But I also agree that we should not be attacking our representatives. They're only part of the wheel. And like I said before, when you're dealing with the state, good luck, folks. They're not, you may not get this in 4 years. And then we've had the chance of fixing this sidewalk for $249, and I really think we need to go ahead with it because this has been a problem for 49 years. I think I've been married to Joe. I've lived in this city for 49 years. It has always been a problem. It's not a new one. And people are fed up, and I think we need to fix it for the taxpayers.
Ms. Nicely.
I just wanted to go on record, and I did thank Adam Koenig, our representative, for going to, it seems like he's going to bat to try to help with Stevenson Road project. So I just wanted to go on record. I was not attacking him. I was actually thanking him for trying to get involved and help. And I know it's going to be out of his hands, and I was just generalizing. It might be 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, but I did not bash Adam Koenig.
So Jack, are we allowed to do like a straw poll?
You can do whatever you want, Mayor. I mean, obviously, from a practical perspective, it's been budgeted. So, I think if council didn't want to do this, we probably would need a straw poll to do it as a budget amendment, where we would be actually taking it out of the budget, which would be the action that council would need to take at the next meeting. So I think that certainly would be appropriate to do a straw poll to see if we want to prepare that budget amendment to then take this out of this fiscal year budget.
Okay. Okay, so, Ms. Reckers?
Well, 60 days is still this fiscal year.
We won't be able to rebid and execute the contract and complete the work if we are beyond 60 days. Mr. Meyer?
But we could, just like, work that was there last year, right? We could still, money's in the budget to do the work. Let's say we didn't delay, we could get a rebid, the work could start, and then council could commit to putting that money in the budget for next fiscal year still, right? We'd still be committed.
It's not technically how we budget. We don't bid projects that we don't have committed funds for.
But we did, right? We did last year. We committed the funds, but because of an accounting situation, it fell into the following year, right? When we were talking about the Silver Lake stuff. So that didn't get completed in that fiscal year, and we still spent the money because it was delivered.
Which
after
required
the
a budget amendment.
I'm sorry?
Which required a budget
Right,
amendment.
but we know going into this budget cycle that, hey, this might not get done, we can put the extra money in the budget going into the cycle year, so.
But the reality is we need to have an executed contract by Friday. Otherwise, we're going to have to rebid it, correct? Isn't that right, Peter and
Thursday.
Matt?
We told them Thursday is our,
Tomorrow?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from a practical matter, we would have to be rejecting, or the city staff would have to reject a bid that has been accepted that is within the budgeted amount. So I do think that it probably would be best for council to at least, if a majority of this body is not wanting to move forward with this project, I think it would be helpful to staff to know that tonight. Is that fair, Peter and Matt? Okay.
So, Ms. Kyle, do you have a question?
Why don't we just take a straw vote on how many want to keep it in the budget? Wouldn't that be?
Perfect.
Okay.
That's same, it's apples and apples there, but I'm going to allow the educator to take the lead in the semantics, okay?
You want to take the mic? Okay, so Sherry, can you do a roll call? And it's going to be if you want to move forward with the contract of $249,000 for the sidewalk improvement.
No, I want to rephrase that, though, because I think it's, the only thing that we can vote on is whether we want to do a budget amendment. I have no authority to tell you not to spend this money, but I can say that, hey, we want to go forward with a budget amendment to remove funds. I think is the only thing that we can vote on. Am I correct?
I think that we can get a straw poll from council on any issue that council wants tonight. I think from a very procedural perspective, the only authority that council has on this issue would be to remove it from the budget. Did I answer your question, or did I kind of circular or answer it there?
Yeah, I just want, I want to make sure that we're doing a straw poll on whether we want to change the budget, not whether we approve of the project. I do approve of the project. I would like to delay, but I don't necessarily know that I want to take it out of the budget.
And I want to go back to what I first said. I think the issue that is in front of staff, front and center, is whether we move forward and execute the contract on Thursday. And if we don't execute that contract on Thursday, I think the idea is that council needs to understand that it would be rebid. It may or may not be in this budget cycle. It's probably going to be in next year's budget cycle, and the costs may increase. And I think that's kind of the point, at least, of tonight. Is that fair? So I just think because of the unique situation of all of this, I just think the idea was to make sure that council was still on board with moving forward with the sidewalks under the current bid and the current contract that needs to be signed Thursday, not necessarily the broader should they be fixed sometime in the future. We're talking about the current bid and the current contract under the current budget.
Yeah. Like tomorrow, Thursday. Kind of. Mr. Hermes, did you have a question?
My point was just to say, to go along with what Mr. Meyer is saying, I think we can vote on the simpler idea and concept, and we would know as a council, if most of us say no, not to go forward with the project, that our next action would be to remove it from the budget. I think we would all understand that.
Matt, did you have a question? All right. Mr. Meyer, are you okay with?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit out here. I'm not going to vote. I don't want to be an abstention, but I don't want to vote. Because I don't like the way that this is phrased, so I'm just going to be honest.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, then rephrase it. I mean, it's just in an effort to make it simpler to comprehend.
I mean, there's really no formal action being taken tonight. I think that all that we're seeking is just guidance from council as to whether they want to move forward under the current bid and the current contract. I mean, I don't think there's any trick here. At least I wasn't brought aware of that.
No, if you want to rewrite the question, go for it. Let's just make sure that everybody's clear with the question. Okay.
I motion we go with a straw poll.
Okay. And whether, so,
We'll just do a straw poll. We'll raise hands. We don't need to do a roll call. Is that fine? And then I'll write down.
Okay.
We'll see
Here's
who's
the
in
thing.
favor of
Here's
moving forward with the contract tomorrow.
yes, if you want me to sign the contract for $249 tomorrow, raise your hand. If you don't want me to, or if you,
That's all we need.
okay. It totally is. I totally agree with you. It is a very unfortunate situation. The time frame is just funky. And I just wanted to throw this out there to you. It's very unfortunate.
So can we count on you to find 250 in savings in the next budget year for our taxpayers and sanity to save? Will you commit to that?
250,000 in savings for next fiscal year?
Just
Oh,
good stewardship.
I will desperately try. Considering we haven't spent a dollar on that sidewalk in how many years? 30 some odd? That we should have been spending for 30 some odd years? I mean, I know, Renee, look at that. We've only neglected this terrible situation for how many years, but we saved some money. And I'm being totally facetious. All right. Good combo, guys. Oh, Mr. Skidmore.
Yes. Are they going to do that work after school is out? Or are they going to, you know, it would be pretty much a hazard if they're doing it while kids are walking to school.
Ed, do you?
They're going to start. They're going to start as soon as they can start. So it will not be after school.
It's a bad situation no matter what, Don. All right, any other questions? Do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Rebecca? Jennifer? All in favor say aye. Opposed? All right,